For more, TRT World correspondent Britt Clinic joins me now live in the studio. She has covered the story at length. Thanks so much for coming in. Talk to us more then about the reaction of the Chinese government. It really hasn't conceded anything to protesters, and we're hearing it's likely they will deploy security forces now in Hong Kong.
Well, look, I don't think anything that the Foreign Ministry said was surprising. They used the foreign interference line. They blamed the media, which, of course, in Hong Kong is different from their media on the mainland because it's free and independent. But what we did see is them stand behind Carrie Lam and say, you know, she has had time for reflection and to really ask the Hong Kong people to forgive her in many ways. This shows that they are wanting to give the impression that one country, two systems is alive and well. Analysts say that perhaps they will deploy some security forces into Hong Kong, but my contacts within the police force in Hong Kong tell me, well, there's still a lot in the bag for local police before that happens, and that they're not going to roll in the tanks, they're not going to bring in the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. Perhaps they will use a local security bureau before that, because that will be more subtle. They don't want to give the impression that Beijing is using force in Hong Kong. That's just a bad look.
Right. Let's take a listen quickly to what some of the protesters had to say about continuing these demonstrations.
The State Council stated that they want Hong Kong to resume to normal, and that is the hope of the Civil Human Rights Front as well. And I'm sure a lot of protesters want our city, our home, to resume to normal. And the only way to do it is our five demands to be met, and especially we require an independent inquiry. Only with the independent inquiry led by independent judge, the whole truth of all the abuse of power by police ever since the 12th of June can be thoroughly investigated and reported.
They're talking down to Hong Kong. What about one country, two systems? There's nothing wrong with it. And especially when they mention rule of law, they sound very much as though rule of law is indeed in their pocket. That attitude of I am the law kind of approach, it's just unsettling.
So, Britt, I mean, the protesters remain steadfast in their demands, and China is not acknowledging those demands. They're not planning to meet and concede anything. Can we expect this, then, to get worse?
I think you can definitely expect it to continue. Whether that's going to continue with the same level of violence as we've seen remains to be seen. But, you know, we heard from Claudia Mo there and the Civil Human Rights Front, one of the organisers of the protesters. They have these demands. You know, I would also argue that it hasn't become just about these demands. It's about the wider fight for democracy. Right. And we will continue seeing elements of the local government wanting to introduce things like the extradition bill. We've heard about the national anthem bill, which would make it illegal for people to mock the anthem. That may come next. So there will be these incremental changes. Now, one to watch is the district council elections in November. I'm told by Joshua Wong, one of the faces of the 2014 protests, that he wants to put his name forward for that. Now, will Beijing give him a little bit of an inch, or will that mean that the rest of the mainland will also want democracy? And that's something that the Beijing government will consider very carefully.
Okay, Britt, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming in. Now,